Hey everyone, hope you're all getting some time on the water, having lots of fun. Well, this one did not go as planned. On the screen, as you can see, I paddled back prone. So I learned a few things on this one, so I figured I'd share it and hopefully it can save some people from getting skunked because the conditions for downwinding are a little bit different I look for compared to kiting or winging. So here we go. Hey guys, this is me just paddling back into the marina. I went out and was hoping to do a long downwinder, but the wind's just too offshore. These swells are too spread out, a lot of pumping, and I was planning on doing a huge one, like 50 kilometers. So this is the paddle of shame home. Super frustrating, but it's better than me being stranded way out there, and I'm making it back safe, but darn, guess it's all part of the journey. Just gotta keep on trying. So as I talk and ramble on a little bit here, I thought I would put some actually decent footage of me riding. This was last weekend from Sarnia Murphy Beach Road to Blue Point. But anyways, just something to watch while I ramble on. Lesson number one. If you're driving far downwinding, you might as well put a wing in your car too, just in case it's offshore. It's not ideal. You always have a backup because let's face it, you've done this enough. You've probably got skunked, and getting skunked, oh man, it sucks. But I suppose maybe there's a little lesson, or you can pick up a little forecast or things to look out for next time so it does happen. Okay, rule number two, I would say, is don't get fixated on your phone and the forecast. Actually look at the conditions if possible, the beginning point or the end point before you make that drive, or you head out on the water. Further in the video, I'm going to elaborate on the conditions and what happened that day and why it was a little bit weird. But moving on, compared to winging or kiting, the conditions are, you have to really know your local spot, and I'm still just figuring it out. I've been downwinding, like proper downwinds, for a little over a year now, and I'm still figuring out my spot. I'm still trying to get it all dialed in. Generally, what I look for is the side offshore winds, really strong, stronger the better. Just slightly offshore, like 20 degrees, and that helps with the refraction of the waves. And I guess I'm gonna talk about that in a second more. But yeah, you can't just rely on the wind power to with a kite or a wing or windsurf sail to kind of blast you around. So really knowing your spot and what conditions you're looking for is pretty crucial. So I'm going to explain some more here. So up on the screen, the two red arrows, it's called wave refraction. Let's say there was a wind blowing perfectly straight up and down the lake, perfectly north. The waves are still going to refract on shore when you arrive to the beach. That's why I kind of like to go on side offshore. And I'd be curious to see other people who are downwinding what their ideal conditions are they're looking for. But back to wave refraction. So in the middle of the lake or the middle of the body of the water, the waves are going to be moving faster because the water is deeper. As the water gets shallower, the waves slow down, and that causes the waves to curl into the shore. So even it could be perfectly side shore or side offshore, you can get to the beach or where you're starting, and it's going to look like the waves are breaking on shore. That's called wave refraction. And to compensate that a little bit, I like to look for side offshore, or just slightly offshore, sorry, breeze. I'm talking like 20 degrees on the compass, somewhere in that range. And that just keeps the waves moving a little bit more side shore. And it makes it easier to ride while downwinding because you're not having to traverse as much. Traversing is like working your way sideways when you're out downwinding, and it's fun. It's great, and as I get more experienced, I'm getting better at traversing, and I think I'm gonna start trying, you know, some conditions that are more onshore because my level of riding has allowed me to traverse better. But the ultimate when you're downwinding is just doing whatever you want and just surfing it totally freely and not having to worry about traverse. And typically when you're traversing, you're pumping quite a bit. So what are other people looking for when they go out and downwind conditions? I'd be curious. I know the lakes are a little bit different than the oceans. The ocean has some ground swell. We don't get as much as that in the lakes, but I'm kind of at a toss up right now. Do I go to the side that is slightly onshore and you have guaranteed waves, but you get way more traversing? Or do you wait for a wind or go to the side that's slightly offshore, like 20 degrees roughly, and then you don't have to traverse as much? So I'm going to be playing around with that, and I'll let you know how it goes. So here's the forecast. And as you can see, 22 knots, gusting just under 30 knots. I thought this was going to be an epic session, just so awesome. Yeah, I was really fixated on that forecast and just had visions of my head having, you know, a total blast. But what I didn't look at was the weather stations, and let me show you what those showed. As you can see, like 23 knots, and that has a little bit of east, so it'd be onshore. But where I was starting was Port Sanilac, and it was basically totally offshore. I wish I saw that earlier. So yeah, I didn't catch those live conditions. But when I was driving there, crossing the bridge, I saw from up top the lake, it looked like it was kind of offshore, but I was already committed and I had that fixated thing in my head. That's where the wing would have been beneficial. I drove up there already, and I could have just had that and still got out on the water and had some fun. But even better than the weather stations is take a look at it with your own eyes if possible. Once again, this is like footage from a week and a half ago, not where I got skunked, obviously. But speaking of the conditions that day, there was still some big, long groundswell that was moving pretty fast. And I did paddle up on foil with a lot of work, but I really had to pump hard to match my speed to that groundswell and stick with it. And it wasn't steep at all. So you really had to stay high on your foil. And if you got off one of those ground swells, which would obviously happen a lot, you'd have to be pumping into the next one. So then I was faced with the decision, do I paddle out even further where I'm going to get better chip ins and more easier wind chop swell and combine it with that ground swell? But I could see out there, I was already a little ways out, and with my eyes, I figured I had to go out a few more kilometers. The temperature is dropping here, and I just made a decision, you know, safety first.
yeah, you don't want to get yourself in any kind of trouble. So I just opted to head in and wait for another day. There's always, I guess, another chance to get out, which is tough. So to summarize, bring a wing and really analyze those conditions before you go for a drive. Also, I'd be curious what people think of wave refraction and how onshore of a breeze they go out. I'm going to try going out on an onshore breeze and see how the traversing goes. I'll let you know how it works out. All right, have some fun.